guys, Sean here. I built this crazy contraption. Like many of you, I enjoy watching movies on a big screen TV. The problem with a big screen TV in your living room is it really doesn't go with the decor, unless you have one of those wallpaper TVs, which are really expensive. So at the request of my wife, she said, yeah, we can have a TV in the living room, but you gotta be able to hide it whenever we're not using it. So I built this machine that, took me 3 or 4 or 5 tries to get right. That whenever you turn it on, it comes down from above the fireplace, and then whenever you turn it off, it goes back above the fireplace and hides itself behind a picture. So here's my first problem. We have a fireplace that's about 5.5 feet off of the ground. So if we place the TV above that, the bottom of the TV would be 6 feet off the ground. That meant if you were watching TV, you ended up looking like this, which is very uncomfortable, let me tell you. So time to do some research. I had to figure out if there was something out there I could buy that would help me take the TV from above the fireplace to down in front of the fireplace. The great news is that there is. I bought one of these on Monoprice, which is a great website for buying cables and stuff like that, that's actually designed to mount a TV above a fireplace, and then you go over and manually pull it down whenever you want to watch TV. Well, that's great, except the fact it's manual. I don't want to have to get out of my chair every time I want to go watch TV. I had to figure out a way to automate it. Well, the problem with finding a motor that will work is I really don't know how much force it takes to lift that TV. A great way to get around that is to use a scale. So if you just take a scale and just stick it under whatever you're trying to lift and then push on it, it'll tell you how much force it takes to lift it. So we take this scale and we put it under the TV and we push up on it to see how much force it takes to raise the TV. All right, that's about 30 pounds. Let's go measure up top. So this arm length here is about 16 inches. So to figure out the torque, it's as easy as taking that 30 pounds and multiplying by that 16 inches, and that gives us 480 inch-pounds, which is 40 foot-pounds of torque. So my first attempt at this was to use an AC motor like this. This AC motor is out of a wood pellet stove, and it's attached to an auger bit that feeds the pellets into the stove. It's high torque. It's got about 225 inch-pounds of force, and we need 40 foot-pounds of torque. But what we can do on this is I can actually attach a pulley to it. Now, if I attach a pulley to it, the radius of the pulley here is about 1 inch. So that means 225 inch-pounds of force divided by 1 inch gives me 225 pounds of force, lifting force for the TV. And that's plenty because the TV only weighs, 30 pounds when we lifted it with the scale. So I'll attach a cable to this, wrap it around, go up to a pulley and down to the TV and see if that works. So one other interesting thing about this motor is it's got a built-in brake. When the magnetic field turns on, it pulls this little metal piece towards the stator, and that allows it to spin freely, right? But as soon as you turn the motor off, this little plastic piece comes back and it won't allow it to spin anymore. So what this means is that when I wind the TV up to its highest position, it won't automatically spool back down, which is good because it doesn't do you any good to have it go up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. So I need a way to disengage this brake when I'm ready for the TV to come down. So what I came up with is something like this. This is just a cheap door lock actuator that you can get on eBay. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mount it such that when I want the TV to come down, I'll turn on the solenoid and it'll push this little brake here and it'll allow the TV to come down. I'll show you here if you hook 12 volts up to them, how it comes. That's fun. Super fun. And what I'm gonna do is old Bessie back there, I'm going to print a bracket to be used on my motor so that I can attach this to this. So this is what old Bessie spit out. This is a bracket that's going to mount my actuator like this, and then my motor something like this. Yeah. So that when the actuator comes out, it's gonna push on this little bracket here. I gotta screw it all together and everything. So this is what we ended up with. Our solenoid mounted using this 3D printed bracket right in front of this brake. So let's give it a try and see if it works. So I'm then going to take this thing, mount it up, and see how it goes. So we got it installed, and it worked great, except for one small problem. Yeah, that's incredibly loud. It sounded like a jet engine taking off every time you turn the TV on and off. And it takes like 35 seconds for it to raise and lower. That's just not gonna work. So, this motor, although it was really good, first attempt is scrapped. I won't really cover what my second attempt was because it ended with some smoke from the attic, but just so you know, I ended up buying one of these hoists that you can get, like a engine hoist or something, electric engine hoist. And I mounted it in the attic so that it was far enough away it wouldn't have a sound problem. The problem is eventually it locked up and started to melt. Second attempt, not so good.
So I needed to figure out another motor that would work for what I'm doing. What I came up with is one of these running board motors. They put these on big trucks and SUVs that have running boards that when you open the door they come out to make it easy to get in and out. They're very high torque and they have a worm gear built inside so it'll hold its position. I mounted it to this big arm I welded together to the TV so that when it turns it would move the TV up and down. Unfortunately, it didn't quite have enough torque for what I needed. So what I ended up doing is putting a gear on it on this end and then matched with another gear that was about a 1-to-3 ratio. Let me show you how that turned out. So after putting it together, here's what I ended up with. This is my running board motor, and I've got 2 sets of gears here, and this reduces the speed of this motor by 3, but it also increases the torque by 3, which should be plenty for what we're trying to do. Let's plug it up and see how it works. You can see with power applied, the motor turns, and with the 1-to-3 gear ratio, it has more than enough torque. In fact, my power supply wasn't even able to provide enough amperage to get the full power out of the motor, but when I mounted it on the wall with much bigger power supply, it worked great. So after 2 other failed attempts, I think I'm ready to go. I got the motor put on the TV. I put in some limit switches to make sure that it didn't go too far up or down. I also put in a frame around it to make it look like a picture and the frame would drop with these slides.
I also have an Arduino that controls all the automation with a bunch of messy wiring and an e-stop button which is necessary to not crash your TV into the wall.
I also took a picture of my family, put it on a big piece of vinyl and attached it to a screen that raises and lowers automatically. It's used for TV projectors. And so in the end, here's what we ended up with.
Well, that's my video. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you're like me, you do these sort of projects all the time, which usually leaves a bunch of failed attempts all around the house. If this is something you'd like to see more of, why don't you grab one of those failed attempts and throw it at that subscribe button. And remember, if it only takes you one try to get something right, then you're doing it wrong.